Okay, so I'm delighted to introduce our guest speaker for today, Professor Kathleen Pithouse-Morgan. So Kathleen is a Professor of Education at the University of Nottingham and holds an honorary professorship at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Her research centres on professional learning, self-reflexive scholarship, and arts-based educational research, utilising the methodologies of self-study, memory work, autoethnography, poetic inquiry, and narrative inquiry. Kathleen collaborates with educators and professionals to generate change relevant to specific contexts and initiated and led by practitioners. Kathleen has held significant leadership roles within her discipline, including as former chair of the Self-Study of Teacher Education Practice Special Interest Group of the American Educational Research Association, and is currently a co-convener of the Arts-Based Educational Research Special Interest Group of the British Educational Research Association. As an executive editor of the Journal of Teaching and Teacher Education, Kathleen helps shape the direction of international educational research. Her contributions in the field have been recognised with the National Excellence in Teaching and Learning Award from the Higher Education, Learning and Teaching Association of Southern Africa and the Research Honours Award from the South African Education Research Association. Kathleen is currently leading a funded project of poetic research by teachers in higher education, exploring the intersection of the arts and academia. Her latest book, Arts-Based Educational Research Narratives of Academic Identities, co-edited with colleagues from South Africa, shares new voices, ideas, and creative possibilities in arts-based educational research, with exemplars from multiple self-study research projects. So I would now like to hand over to Kathleen, who is going to give us a presentation now on self-study as a movement and methodology for inside-out educational change.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having me here today. It's really an honour to be here talking to you, those who are in the room and those who are online. And today I'm going to be talking about some work that I've been doing with two of my colleagues from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, Makie Kortjass, who is joining us online today, and Ntokozo Mkhize-Mthembu, who unfortunately had another commitment and couldn't join us today. So those of you who know me know that I always enjoy making the work that I do with colleagues poetic. And I think that is because of, as many wise people have said, poems can say a lot more than words. And so I'm going to start with a poem that was created. It's a found, what we call a found poem. So it's words that were taken from transcripts of conversations between colleagues who were facilitating self-study research in the United States of America and colleagues who were facilitating self-study research in South Africa. And we had a series of conversations about self-study, about what it meant for us, and about how we were facilitating it in transdisciplinary groups in these two countries. We recorded those conversations, and we then drew on them to create a series of found poems, which we presented, I think it was in 2016, so almost 10 years ago, at the Castle Conference, which is the biannual conference of self-study research. And I wanted to start with this poem called Knowing and Becoming. The knower is actually me. Demystify the self. How do I read that knowledge? Of what value is that knowledge? Knowledge of who I am, what I do, what I'm meant to be, how do I read that knowledge? Of what value is that knowledge? Linked to knowledge is becoming, linked to knowledge is being, knowing and becoming, ethos and pathos, a way to be whole, a transformative self. So self-study is often referred to as a new methodology. And I always feel like saying, well, actually, it's not so new because it's been around for 30 years. So perhaps it's more middle-aged. But it's often new to people. And so I find it really useful to go back and think about the origins and the evolution of self-study, looking at how it evolved, why it evolved at that time, but also how it has expanded and grown. So the self-study special interest group began as part of the American Educational Research Association in 1993, so 31 years ago. And it evolved from earlier practitioner inquiries like educational action research and teacher research. Since then, in the last 30 years, it has expanded globally. So moving outwards from North America to South Africa, to Australia, to South America, to various parts of Europe. And it has also expanded from teacher education, where it began, across disciplines. And it has happened through gatherings over the years, like the Castle Conference, which happens every second year in the UK, through the meetings of the Special Interest Group in North America, through meetings of the Special Interest Group in South Africa, and also through extensive publications and the scholarship of self-study research. And looking back over the 30 years of work that has been done, it's really interesting to see how self-study has become distinguished by certain traits and principles which have grown and developed and evolved over the years and through the interaction of people from diverse contexts. But I think what is most important and what is at the core of self-study and what we're talking about today is that it is about generating educational change from the inside out. It starts with the self of the researcher, the self of the educator, but it moves significantly beyond the self and has a much wider impact. So my colleagues, Makie Kortjass and Ntokozo Mkhize-Mthembu and I, we're interested to look back over the 30 years of scholarship in self-study, to think about what is it that makes self-study distinctive and unique. And so we looked back at key reviews of self-study or analyses of self-study that had been done over the years, starting in 2004 when the first International Handbook of Self-Study was published, and moving right up until 2022. So we looked at almost 20 years of analyses of self-study, people saying, well, what is it? What are we doing here? What is this work that we're doing? What makes this distinctively self-study? And what we were interested in, I think particularly coming from a South African context where issues of social justice and social cohesion are always very much on our minds and in the foreground, is we were interested in what do these analyses tell us about how self-study enhances self-understanding, how it starts with the self of the researcher, but it's enabling significant educational change and also social change through changing practice, but also changing theory.